excuse me, it's that time of the year. Everybody getting sick. By the way, don't Google what happens when a 5-year-old has a 104 degree temperature, because everything for some reason circle back to cancer. I don't know why, but everything circles back to cancer. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Because I Have a Live Mic here on Fluent Radio. What's good, everybody? Got a great show lined up for you today. I'm gonna talk about the All-Star Weekend and really why it exists still, and talk about the new format and why it didn't really work. Also gonna talk about LeBron sitting out. It's probably not a good look for him and what's next for the All-Star game. We're also gonna talk about Jalen Hurts being a top 5 quarterback and why I completely think he is a top 5 quarterback without any doubt. We're also gonna talk about some off-season moves that some NFL teams are gonna be making this off-season. But first we gotta talk about the All-Star game, and let's be honest, at this point, I don't know why people are so upset like the All-Star game. It is what it is. It is a glorified pickup game. It is a glorified pickup game. Like, I don't know why people are so upset. Like, oh no, the All-Star game isn't, they don't take it seriously anymore. Back in my day, people took the All-Star game seriously and they actually played. No, they didn't. No, they played in the fourth quarter like every other All-Star game did before them. Every All-Star game, they took plays off. They weren't playing as hard as they should until the fourth quarter hit, and then all of a sudden it was a basketball game, and then they actually played a little bit more. Like people take Pro Bowls and All-Star games and all of these things so seriously, when at the end of the day, it is literally just a glorified pickup game. It is what it is. Like, if you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you. It's a glorified pickup game. Especially like the past few years where literally Steph was literally on the ground not to get dunked on. You have people taking wide open threes. You have people shooting threes from the half court shot. You have Dwight Howard one year shooting a three and making it. Like, let's be real, what the All-Star game is at the end of the day, a glorified pickup game. The All-Star game has not been the All-Star game for about 20 years now. Like, 20 years ago was the last time the All-Star game was serious. Golly, I'm old. I just thought about that. I remember the 03 All-Star game. I remember Kobe and Mike going at each. Oh my gosh, I'm old. But it's a glorified pickup game. It is not to be taken seriously. And especially in the past 10 years, I'll be honest with you, the NBA has picked up on that, and they don't care about the All-Star game. They care literally about everything that goes around the All-Star game. From the parties, to the conventions, to the fanfare, to everything they care. That's all they care about. Why? Because that's what's make them money. At the end of the day, the NBA is a business, and that is what they care about. They are a business at the end of the day. And they know the All-Star game is essentially their Super Bowl. Right? Like, if you be honest with yourself. Let's look at the All-Star game, right? The NBA does not have, a Super Bowl where they can have a halftime performance, right? They don't have, pre, events where they can have it, right? The NBA doesn't have that. So the All-Star game is that. They don't have, yeah, they have a game 7, but not too many celebrities come out to a game 7 if they get to a game 7 in the NBA finals. Not too many people come out for that because it's about the basketball at that point. It's not about, the fanfare, the celebrity, all of that. It's about the basketball. The NBA All-Star game is about the fanfare. It's about the celebrity. It's about making money. If you don't think NBA players showing up at a party is convenient to the party goers, to the party planners, to the club, the restaurant, the convenience center, whatever they do, if you don't think the NBA is not getting a piece of that money, you're crazy. And that's what the All-Star game has become. Sure, the ratings can drop, but I'm pretty sure they make a pretty penny off of everything that goes on. From the Celebrity All-Star game to the Skills Challenge to the All-Star game itself. Everything they do, they are making money from it, and that is what the NBA cares about at the end of the day. They could care literally less about the game. They could care less about it. That's why they've been putting out subpar products, right? That's why players don't take it seriously, right? And the more and more y'all try to make them take it seriously, what incentives do they have to take it seriously? What literally do they have? You gonna pay them more money? Like they're already most of them have all-star incentives in their contract. So you're already paying them just to get into the all-star game. So that doesn't paying them more money isn't going to help. So you already have that in contracts. What you're going to say, hey, well, you get the MVP trophy, cool. They can add it to their resume. At the end of the day, it is about making money to the NBA, and the All-Star game itself makes no money. Well, I shouldn't say makes no money, right? Because this year, especially, they had 2 hours of commercials and only 30 minutes of actual basketball being played. So, like, that's number one. So they making money off of that. And then again, the parties, everything surrounding the All-Star game makes them money. The celebrity appearances, all of that makes them more money. The NBA is probably never going to care about the All-Star game again. Until y'all say, all right, until y'all take it seriously, we're not going to take it seriously. Until y'all stop going there, they don't care. They're not going to change up the product, right? Like every now and then they'll make a new format, right? To me, honestly, the best format was probably when they had like the captains pick the team and they had like the score they had to go to, right? Because that was fun, right? 2020, when they did it the first time, right? That was a fun time, right? Like that was a legit fun time. Like people were playing, and it was a little bit more fun. They took it a little. They took it a little bit more seriously because that was like almost a month after Kobe died, so they took it seriously for Kobe. But I mean, when they had those, the point goal, like people were taking it seriously. Like okay, they were playing legit hard ish basketball, right? Like it's still all-star level basketball, but they were playing basketball. This format that they busted out was terrible, right? Like if they were going to do that, I would have just rather had them Shaq and Charles Barkley pick their teams and then go at it like that. Because when you got guys who are like first time All Stars like Wemby going out there who was playing hard in it and only really got 5 minutes of play, it's messed up for him. Right? Like he was taking it seriously. He was going out there playing hard. But it just didn't matter because they had to do this new format where they were only going to 40, and then it was lackadaisical to me. It was boring. It wasn't anything special, right? If they're gonna do this, just stick with the captains thing, have them pick their teams, and have them go out and be like, hey, first team that gets to 160 wins, right? Because then people will actually play. People will actually care about it. But they won't care about it if they're just going up there playing the 40. People will get their all-star time and then go on about their day. So I just don't think this new format was the thing that took, make people care about the NBA All-Star game again. And again, fans who take it super seriously, I understand. Like if you're a fan, especially if you're a fan who pays to go see an All-Star game, first of all, if you're going to the All-Star game, you got money like that, good job, right? Because I'm never going to pay for an All-Star game when either I can watch it on TV at home for free-ish at home. Because the All-Star game, it's cool. It's like a lot of pomp and circumstance and all of that, but I don't need to see that live. I'm good. I'd rather see it on TV anyway. It's more fun that way. But I can get why the fans at the stadiums would be upset. Like I paid a lot of money to come and see, the elite level players play basketball and they're not really playing. But at the same time, for a lot of these guys, like especially the guys that's been there, 10 plus years, they know what it is. They not really playing hard. They know that essentially this is just, hey, this is kind of my mini break a little bit. Like, yeah, I'll go out there, I'll play maybe, 30 minutes in the game and then I'm done. They know this. They not trying to get hurt. They're not trying to play in the All-Star game and get hurt and ruin their season. They're not trying to ruin the teams. They just going out there to play. Like this is the only time for them to kind of just have fun playing with nothing, right? Like it's a little bit of bragging rights, but at the end of the day, for the players, it's just to have fun. We as fans need to understand that for them, yes, this is their job, but for, you know, them, the players, this is the one time a year where they get to just have fun playing basketball. It's no, record involved, it's no anything involved, just have fun. That's why we see people shooting half court threes. That's why we see people chugging it up, you know, from baseline to baseline. That's why we see, people not really wanting to get posterized on dunks like that. Right? Like, this is the reason why, because they know at the end of the day, this is just a fun game for the players to play. For the fans, I get it. You want to see competitive basketball. Save that money for the playoffs if your team makes the playoffs. Save that money for that. Because this ain't it. You go into an all-star game, you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. I'll be honest with you. That's what it is. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit about it. Like, the only thing I will say is LeBron, this kind of was dirt. That was, I don't want to say dirty, but that was a little selfish of you, LeBron. Right? Like, I get it. You wanted to get the record. You wanted to have the most All-Star games ever. But if you knew you was hurt, you should have stayed. You should have stayed home. Like, you could have went, but you could have stayed home. Because you messed up opportunities for somebody like a Sabonis to get an All-Star. You messed up an opportunity for somebody like, LaMelo to get an All-Star chance. And, you messed up a chance for a player who really wanted it to get there because you knew you were hurt and you knew you weren't going to play. And I'll say that was legit selfish at LeBron to do that. Right? Like, that was legitimately selfish for him. And for him to do that, it does hurt his legacy a little bit. I'm not saying like this is complete. This is it. This is the final straw for LeBron James' legacy. Like, it hurts his legacy. But again, it's an all-star game. Not too many people are going to care. But it was a very selfish move of you, LeBron James, to kind of be like, yeah, I'm hurt, so I'm just going to sit this out, when you could have did that. You still would have got the recognition of being an all-star for the 21st time. You could have just set out. You could have just set out and given somebody like a Sabonis a chance to get into an all-star game because he's having a great year this year. But yeah. I will say this. The dunk competition was better than I expected, but my expectations were low to begin with. They were low to begin with anyway, but this was a better dunk contest than I thought. Right? Matt McCullough, I'll give him credit where credit is due. He came out firing. His first dunk was over a car. Credit is due, my man. You came out guns a blazing. He said, "I Blake," and he actually jumped over the car, not like Blake Griffin where he jumped over the hood of the car. Like, no, he jumped over the actual car and cleared it. Like, I'll give you credit where credit is due. That was a good dunk. And I'll say this: I know a lot of people want the bigger name stars like a Ja or Giannis, LeBron. In-game dunking and dunk competition is two different things, right? Because in-game dunking, it looks great because it's going on the run, it's fast-paced, it's all of those things. It looks spectacular, all of that. Dunk competition dunks are harder because you have to be a little bit more creative. And while I do think like certain stars are a lot more creative, it will kind of be a drag to see them not be able to do like Butez did. Like, he was not able to dunk his first dunk, and that hurt him a lot. I'm like, okay, he I saw him do it at the All-American game when he was in high school. I was like, all right, he got a little something there, and he kind of laid an egg on national TV in front of everybody. But then again, he plays for the Bulls. What do you expect? Of course he was gonna lay an egg on national TV. It's the Bulls. No matter what happens, they're going to lay an egg. But I think in-game dunking is harder. I mean, dunk competitions are harder for guys who aren't truly like dunkers like that. And like, especially with Mac, where he has the time to kind of come up with these things. If you're like a high-level star, you don't have the time frame to kind of be like, all right, after practice, I'm going to, kind of come up with these crazy dunks and do all of this stuff. So while I would love to see some stars like that, I don't know if it's always, I always say, be careful what you wish for, because to get something like that and for it not to turn out good could hurt your reputation going forward. So like, I understand why a lot of stars are just like, I'm not gonna do the dunk competition. I'm good, right? And also I've seen people say crazier things like Matt McCullough probably the best dunker to ever do it. I'm just like, not to get on my old man, but Vince Carter still exists. Vince Carter still exists until he trying to nutmegs a dude on the Olympic stage. Vince Carter's still the best dunker. And it's not even the best dunk competition. Like, the best dunk competition was arguably and still will forever be the duology of Zach LaVine versus Aaron Gordon. Like, those two dunk competitions were spectacular, right? Those were dunk competitions. Those were the things I miss. The Nate Robinson versus Dwight Howard. That was a dunk competition. Jason Richardson in the dunk competition. Those were dunk competitions. Like, kids, go on YouTube and look at that, because those were legit dunk competitions. This one was cool, but it still don't touch the levels of those dunk competitions. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And then I'll say this on my final piece about the All-Star game. As far as where it goes, like I said, if you continue to think that they're going to take the dunk, I mean, not the dunk, if you're going to continue to think they're going to take the All-Star game seriously, you're delusional. But I do know one thing they can do to kind of make it a little bit, interesting, is to do the USA versus the world, right? I mean, especially something like this year after the USA come off of an incredible run in the Olympics, beating Wemby in, his home country to win the gold medal. Something like that would be crazy. Just imagine you got Shea, Giannis, Wemby, right? On the same, Jokic, Jamal Murray, all on the same squad, going against, the best that the US has to offer. Just imagine something like that. That would be an interesting pool, right? Like, that would be something very cool to see. Luka and Jokic on the same squad, right? We could see the big three one more time together. KD, LeBron, and Steph playing on the same squad. Like, that would be a very impressive, a very high top All-Star game, because then, it they would take it a little bit more seriously. I think if it was US versus the world, that would be a phenomenal All-Star game weekend, right? That would be something to behold. But again, it's the All-Star game, so don't take it too seriously. Just relax and breathe a little bit, guys. I said this last week, and I didn't think it was going to happen this fast, but of course, people are discrediting Jalen Hurts. Literally, after winning Super Bowl MVP and the Super Bowl, they are discrediting Jalen Hurts, calling him not a top 5 quarterback. Okay, allow me to retort a little bit on this topic. Outside of 4 quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrows, who are the top 5 quarterbacks you wouldn't put before Jalen Hurts? And people want to talk about, oh, well, he had one of the best supporting casts in football, so I would put Jared Goff before him. Jared Goff had Amon Ra, J-Mo, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, David Montgomery. Talk about a supporting cast. But okay, if you want to put that, sure. Except for the fact that they beat him. So no, Jared Goff is not, to me, a top 5 quarterback, because once again, he proved that he could not win when even he had his best supporting cast he probably ever had in his career. So Jared Goff is not before Jalen Hurts. People are talking about Jaden Daniels. I'm not ready to put Jaden Daniels in the top 5 just yet, only because I give him an incomplete score, because, again, he is a rookie. We saw what happened with CJ Stroud with the sophomore slump. I don't believe that will happen with him, but I'm not ready to put him above Jalen Hurts, especially when 3 out of 3 times you played him, you beat him twice. And the last time you played him, y'all literally blew them out, right? So, no. People are trying to say Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert has yet to win a playoff game in his entire career as an NFL starting quarterback. had one of the worst losses a starting quarterback has had in the playoffs to Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence had a down year. Had one good year, got all of that money, and has had a down year since he's got paid, basically. What other quarterbacks are you going to put before Jalen Hurts? I'm not saying he's beating out those 4 other quarterbacks, but what I am saying is Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion, 2-time going to the Super Bowl, has made the playoffs every year he's a starter, has had great numbers every year he's been a starter, right? People talk about, well, Saquon really carried him. Again, the year before they got Saquon, he threw for almost 4,000 yards. He took a Eagles team with a historically bad defense to the playoffs. And they lost because, again, he was hurt. The defense couldn't stop anybody. So, yeah. Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback. I don't know why people are so hesitant to put him in that category, literally other than they don't want to admit that they had it wrong with Jalen Hurts. I'm not putting Baker above him. I love Baker. I'm a Baker guy. I'm not putting Baker above him. Aaron Rodgers fell off. We all know that. Right? I'm not putting, there aren't too many other quarterbacks I would put before Jalen Hurts. And it's just one of those things where people, I feel like once he won the Super Bowl, it reopened up a lot of criticism that people had. Oh, well, he's inaccurate. Had one of the most accurate seasons he had this year. He's unreliable. When they needed him the most, he came through in big moments, whether it was with his arm or his legs. You can't trust him in the big moments. Literally just... One more? Okay. Literally came through in big moments. He's not a winner. Went on a 10-game winning streak. I love how wins are quarterback stats until they're not. Well, he technically didn't win the game. Saquon didn't, he just didn't lose the game. So he still walked out with a win. When Lamar Jackson loses games, it's Lamar Jackson's fault. It's not the team's fault. It's Lamar Jackson's fault. When Josh Allen loses games, well, his team let him down. He doesn't really have anybody. Josh Allen does it all for him. Joe Burrow loses. Well, you got to look at it like this. I mean, Joe Burrow's had a spectacular year. He has a triple crown wide receiver. The defense just wasn't, there. Patrick Mahomes loses. Oh, well, you got to look at it like this. He really didn't have his best game. Defense really couldn't do anything. Jalen Hurts wins. Oh, well, you got to take into account he had Saquon Barkley. He had this guy. He had A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. The defense did this. Everything that, right? Every excuse you want to pile up is happening for Jalen Hurts for when he wins. But when he loses, it's Jalen Hurts' fault. Well, he just didn't come up big in the moment, right? You can't trust him. He's the weak link in that offense. If Saquon doesn't get a big game, they don't really win. All the excuses you had, he literally put to bed in the Super Bowl in the biggest moment. He put it all to bed. Am I saying he's unyielded from criticism? No. He still needs to work on stuff. But to sit here and try to say that he wasn't one of the reasons why they won the Super Bowl is crazy. Well, the defense scored 24 points. Really? Really? I didn't know Jalen Hurts played on defense. I didn't know A.J. Brown played on defense. I didn't know Devontae Smith played on defense. I didn't know that. Boy, oh boy, I am generally shocked by that. Thank you for that revelation. Because if I remember correctly, the defense scored 1 touchdown with Cooper DeJean, who is not a safety. He's just a corner who locked down your number 1. DeJean is CB1. Right? All of a sudden now, quarterback wins are not the stats that you should look at. You got to look at the numbers. You got to go in. You got to do all of these things and divide and everything up and just really look at the number. Like, box score guys kill me because that's all they look at. They will number you to death when they don't have a legitimate argument about what quarterbacks. are best. That's all numbers guys have, is that legit, is that one thing. Well, if you look at his numbers, to me, once you bring up numbers, you kind of lost the sauce to me, right? Because if you bring up numbers, I can bring up wins. And for the fact that Jalen Hurts has, I wouldn't say the most wins, but he has the most wins in the playoffs since he's been in, the league. All of a sudden it goes silence. Well, you can't count wins. Wins aren't a quarterback stats until they are. We judge Lamar Jackson on the fact that he has not taken his team to a Super Bowl. He has not beaten Patrick Mahomes. We judge Josh Allen on the fact that he has not beaten Patrick Mahomes when it matters the most. Joe Burrow beat Patrick. I said all three names. Beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Every time he goes up there, he has a threat of beating him. That's why those four are ahead of Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying he's jumped up to number one because, he, won the Super Bowl and beat Patrick Mahomes. No. If I'm going off a resume, arguably Patrick Mahomes, arguably Lamar Jackson, arguably Josh Allen, arguably Joe Burrow are the guys, right? Like, those are the big four. But you cannot sit here face to face and tell me that you do not think Jalen Hurts is not a top 5 quarterback because, well, he might have won the Super Bowl, but if they didn't have Saquon, they definitely would have did it. Okay. If the Chiefs didn't have Patrick Mahomes, they wouldn't get to the Super Bowl. See how easy that argument is debunked? Y'all have to start looking deeper into these things. Y'all have to start figuring out how to have coherent arguments about why guys are the best. Y'all have to start using your brain cells a little bit more for these arguments, because a lot of times these arguments are getting tiresome. It's just that. Since we are on that topic of still Super Bowls and wins and losses, KC fans, like Kansas City fans, can y'all just take y'all L and be graceful about it? Like, this is what happens when like teams who haven't won a lot all of a sudden start to win. Like, they win a lot, and then now when they finally lose, they can't take their L with grace. I've seen like so many times, like, Kansas City fans say, well, Patrick Mahomes is still the greatest quarterback to ever do it. No one's arguing that fact. Y'all just lost the Super Bowl. Well, Patrick Mahomes has more Super Bowl wins than Philadelphia does have Super Bowls. I'm just like, okay, nobody's arguing that fact either, but y'all still lost. The refs cheated us. I'm like, oh, karma is a fickle bitch, right? When it comes to that. But like, at the same time, it's just like, take the L and take the L and move on. Like, y'all can't do it. Like, the parade amplified it a little bit more, but it's just like, take the L and move on. Like, it's okay. Welcome to the club. Y'all lost the Super Bowl. I know this is a strange feeling for you, but here's the good news. It's probably not going to be your only one, because they are in cap hell, right? They're probably going to restructure Patrick Mahomes' contract, kick that can down the road so they can open up some money, open up about 50 mil for them to get a little bit better. Some people are going to walk, but next year, they're going to have to start paying some people, right? Trey McDuffie's going to be owed a big contract. So the Hunt family is very good about getting, pieces there with drafting and getting pieces there. But if they kick this can down, and they're not kicking it down the road to like a long time. It's only going to be down the road for like 2 years before Patrick Mahomes' contract comes up and they're back in cap hell. So they have to figure out what they're going to do so that way they don't have to suffer this again. Because I don't know what's worse, having to deal with Kansas City fans when they win or having to deal with Kansas City fans when they lose. I think when they lose is probably the worst, because they are hella pretentious. Like, they legitimately cannot just take this L and move on. Especially now that they have the Swifties on their side, right? Like, oh my dear Lord. Jesus Christ. They cannot just lose gracefully, right? Like, you gonna go up there and flag CJ Gardner-Johnson's mom's restaurant? The man's moms didn't play in the game. Like, I get it if you go into his comments and say, like, you suck or something like that, but you gonna go and try to false flag his mom's restaurant? Like, bruh. the combination of Swifties and Kansas City Chiefs fans after a loss is like the worst combination you can ever do. It's like hot water bleach in an enclosed area. Shake it up and watch it explode, and it is so funny to watch. But we're going to talk about some off-season moves in the NFL. It has not officially started yet. Off-season moves, for them to sign or re-sign and get people don't start until March 12th, I should say. Yeah, March 12th. But you can start franchise tagging people right through here. Cincinnati's already said that they're going to franchise tag T. Higgins once again, which to me, it's a backwards move. But again, their owner is cheap as hell, so I'm not shocked. But franchise tagging him again after franchise tagging him just basically screams like they want to try to get something for him without having him just walk away, which is understandable, but that's probably going to end up biting them in the butt. But it's the Cincinnati Bengals. They cheap as hell. That's all I got to say. One thing I will say this, I will be interested in the trades that's going to happen pretty soon. Like one trade I think is on the trade block, not yet, but will be. It's probably Brock Purdy, right? For Brock Purdy, it's going to be hella interesting for San Francisco because they're going to he's not going to get paid like top money, but he's going to get paid very high money. Like he's going to get at least, I want to say 50 a year. Like he's going to get somewhere near that range because again, he has, Super Bowl on his record, right? Again, Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Relevant, right? He's going to get paid. So if I'm San Francisco and I know I got other spots I have to fill for make my team better, especially with Debo, on the trade block as well, I may think about trading him to a team that needs a quarterback, right? The best spot for me comes to mind is probably the New York Giants. I think if they trade him to New York, I honestly think that would probably be the best spot for him. They can trade him their first round pick and like a third or a fourth for the New York Giants first round pick. And I think that would work out a lot for San Francisco, right? They can get a young quarterback on a rookie contract. Whatever quarterback they get, whether it be Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, goes into a situation where they have one of the great offensive minds in Kyle Shanahan there. They have Christian McCaffrey back there. They have George Kittle there, so they have a safety valve. They have one of the best offensive lines in football. They have a legit defense there. So, if I'm them, I'm thinking about making that trade because, hey, I'm probably not going to get the first pick. I think that might get traded a little bit later. I have an idea of who that might get traded to. But, yeah, they may get the third round pick, and I think they would take a quarterback. Because, again, Brock Purdy is not a bad quarterback. I just think he will be too expensive down the line, further down, versus like now where you can reset the market for a better, value going forward and still be in, playoff contention with a young quarterback, but with a good team. And for Brock Purdy going to New York, he has the setup there, right? Like they can still get a good receiver. So he can have Malik Neighbors there. He has already Tracy Jr. there, right? Like he has a defense that got better over time. Like a lot of people didn't want to give credit where credit is due. That New York defense got way better a lot during the season. So, and they get their quarterback for the future in Brock Purdy, right? Like they needed a quarterback. Daniel Jones didn't work out. I don't think they're going to bust out the checkbook for a Sam Darnold because I don't think they're going to get tricked into giving him a lot of money. But if they can go and get a Brock Purdy who's been a proven winner in the league, I think it could work. So we'll see if that, matriculates. I'm using a lot of big words. I have busted out my big words, my my communications degree. I'm busting it out today. But the reason why I said that they want to trade the first pick because I think Dallas is probably going to make a move for that first pick. Once Jerry signed Dak to that contract, literally the hour before the game started, I think it was a telltale sign of they're probably trying to move off of Dak. And if I'm Dak Prescott, I'd probably want to move too because at this point, this Dallas team is not getting any better. They got a coach who I'm not 100% sure on. If I'm Dak Prescott, I have a no trade clause. I can kind of pick where I want to go. I'm not saying, you know, Tennessee is the best place for me to go, but at the very least, I can go somewhere where I can probably win the division a little bit easier than I would be in the NFC East. Whoever thought I would have said that? Oh my gosh, it's this cold weather is getting to me. But no, and I think Dallas wants to get that pool. I think they want to get a big time player. So I wouldn't be shocked if they traded, Dak and their first round pick to Tennessee. Tennessee gets their quarterback for the future. Again, Dak Prescott, legit MVP candidate, right? They can kind of rebuild with Dak Prescott and kind of make a push for it. Dallas gets the first pick in the draft. Hell, they can get Travis Hunter. Hell, they can get Shador. Hell, they can get Cam Ward. They have plethora of picks that they can go for. They can get Abdullah, right? Abdullah Carter from Penn State. They can get him. Pair him up with Micah Parsons, right? Keep Micah Parsons there. They have a lot of options if they do get the number one pick. And I wouldn't be shocked because it's Jerry. Jerry does those type of things. Getting the number one pick would be very appealing towards him, right? He can reset the quarterback market. He can start over. He would have a little bit more money to sign a Micah Parsons to a long-term deal. Walking into that, you have a CD Lamb, right? They need to address the running back situation, so they need to get better at that. They need to address some holes on the offensive line. The defense was pretty good until it started to get hurt. And even then, when they came back, they were very good, right? Overshawn showed out this season, right? So if you can find a way to maybe get a young quarterback there and again reset that market, I wouldn't be shocked. I would legitimately not be shocked. And then you have the whole thing with Deebo Samuels. And I think Deebo messed himself up a little bit this year because he did not have a very productive year at all. And I think now with, if Christian McCaffrey can come back and be a shell of his former self, we saw Deebo kind of get phased out of that phased out of that offense a little bit. Right? Madison came in for him and he ended up balling out. Like every time like a running back got hurt, another running back just stepped up. They just spawned them and just like respawn every time. So like Deebo's kind of like wide receiver running back hybrid thing didn't work out. And this year it was terrible for him. Like he had like the drop against the Rams on Thursday night was literally the nail in the coffin for them because they could have possibly won that game if he gets that first down. And he was complaining like, it's not the drops, I'm just not getting the ball. And then when you had the opportunity to get the ball, you drop it. I don't know which team would... not only that, I don't know which team, what value he has to a team, right? Because 2 years ago, Deebo Samuels, oh yeah, you're asking for a first round pick at the very least. This Deebo, you'll be lucky to get a fourth round pick. I will be 100% honest. And maybe that might be the fuel to his fire that he needs to kind of prove that he's still a legitimate number one receiver. But I don't know. If Brandon Ayuk can come back and be, what he was when he was trying to get the contract. George Kittle is there. Juwan Jennings showed up when Deebo and Brandon Ayuk got hurt. So we know they have offensive weapons there. Kyle Shanahan can make anybody a star in that offense. We've seen it happen before. So I wouldn't be shocked if Deebo gets his walking papers, and I'm not 100% sure on which team will take him. Because the biggest point would be, are you coming into this team because you legitimately want to prove that you are still one of the best wide receivers, or are you just coming there because you got tired of everybody focusing on you? So I could see it happening, but I just don't know where. And then going back, and I just want to circle back to the Bengals thing, right? Tagging T. Higgins is so backwards, right? Like, I get it. You had arguably one of the best two offensive weapons in the NFL this year, right? Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, triple crown. number one in receiving yards, number one in receptions, number one in touchdowns. Joe Burrow, comeback player of the year, MVP level season. Your defense really held this team back. T. Higgins, who missed about 4 games, still had 1,000 yards and had 10+ touchdown season this year. And for you, and for all the signs, for everyone sitting in that organization saying that we can find a way to kind of sign T. Higgins and keep Jamar Chase on this team, for y'all to kind of be like, nope, we're not going to do it. They messed up in this in the first place because they could have signed Jamar Chase to a cheaper contract, relatively speaking, of course, right? Cheaper for Jamar Chase. But after the year he put up having multiple games with 200+ receiving yards, Jamar Chase is getting a blank check and just saying, here's a blank check, give me whatever money I want, right? You messed up on that. Now you have to find a way to keep both of them there because the franchise tag thing, here's the thing. Tagging him is basically saying, like, we're probably going to trade you, but we wanted to see here's what your value is. Because now teams have to kind of either match that or go higher. And depending on the team, they don't have the money to do that. The only team I think, no, not even them, because they're kind of in cap hell too, right? And there are teams who I think will go after him, but at the same time, it's one of those cases where they want to get a legit number one receiver type weapon there, but I don't know if they have the cap space. Like one of the teams I think will do that will probably be Carolina, because as much as I love Legette, Xavier Legette, he's not a number one receiver yet. They don't really have like a true number one option, and getting the T. Higgins there will help Bryce Young, who had one of, if not the best comeback stories in the league, to be benched, to have one of the best seasons you had as a sophomore, to come back like that, to go head to head with Patrick Mahomes, to kind of win a lot of those games down the stretches, right? Like to show the Bryce Young we saw in Alabama, to get him a number one receiver to kind of open up the field a little bit more for him would be great. But they still have holes that they need to fill, right? The Raiders have a lot of money and they have a lot of space that they can and should be able to kind of get Higgins there, and then they can draft a receiver there, or they can go sign a receiver or trade for one, right? And then the Raiders could be right back in the hunt, right? So there are teams there that would make that move for T. Higgins. It's just I don't know which one is willing to match what Cincinnati is going to be putting out there, right? So I thought it was a silly move, but hey, they just didn't want. I can understand why they tagged him, because they just don't want him to walk and get nothing in return for him. And at the very least, if they don't make a trade for him, they at very least sign him for another year and kind of kick that can down the road a little bit more to see what they can do with Jamar Chase this year. Because again, Jamar Chase is owed a blank check, so they kind of kicked it down the road just a wee bit. And then another case of like kicking the can down the road probably too far is the Rams. There's already been trade talks with, of course, Cooper Kupp, and now there's trade talks with Matthew Stafford. I don't know how much he's proven that he's still a top level quarterback. I think he's still proven that this year, kind of like, the groundswell of like, I don't want to say groundswell of emotions, but just like the way he kind of responded after kind of starting off the season a little slow and kind of picking up and getting to the divisional game in the NFC. But I can kind of see why the Rams might want to restart, right? Like trade Matthew again, trade him while he's high, trade him while his value is high to see what you can get, and just move off of Matthew Stafford, right? Like you guys got what you wanted, which was a Super Bowl victory. Literally the year after you traded for him, you got the Super Bowl ring, and you guys made the playoffs ever since he's been there. I just think it's time to move on and go to something young, go to something new, right? Like you're already trading Cooper Kupp, you're already trading Matthew Stafford, maybe possibly he can go to the Raiders. Like I would love to see that. Matthew Stafford being basically Matthew Stafford being, basically tutored by Tom Brady in a sense, right? Like no matter what quarterback goes there, Tom Brady is going to be a little bit hands on there to a degree because again the whole Fox thing, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, if I'm the Raiders and if I'm looking for at the very least to kind of get a quarterback, right? You can get a Matthew Stafford and then you can draft maybe a Jackson Dart in the later rounds. You can get him there. I know he said he doesn't want to. He's not interested in sitting his rookie season. But my guy, you're going to sit your rookie. You're going to sit your rookie season. I'm sorry, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. So you're going to sit your rookie season. And again, it would only honestly probably be a year because I think after this year, Matthew Stafford will probably hang it up and ride off into the sunset with his Hall of Fame career. But yeah, you can trade him for the Raiders, and then they can jump up and they can go get another young quarterback. Being tutored by Sean McVay, I think that would be the best spot for a young quarterback to go to, right? Hell, if nothing else, they can probably pick up a Justin Fields. I've been saying Justin Fields needs to go to Sean McVay for the longest, right? I've been saying that for the longest because I think he would be owed a chance to be coached by one of the great offensive minds of this generation in Sean McVay and to really see what he has, right? Like I know it's so weird to sit here and say like a guy who's been in the league for about 5 years now, we're finally going to see what he has. But we saw what he was in Pittsburgh. We know what he is in Pittsburgh, right? Like he's a guy who has a good arm. Once he's given an offense that has weapons, we've seen what it happens before, right? Again, DJ Moore had his career year with Justin Fields, right? He's a proven winner with not with the Raiders, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Had them 4-2. So we know Justin Fields has something there. It's just at a point you have to get him with a coach that can kind of coach him up and get him better at the QB and stuff of the game. So I think if you trade Matthew Stafford and you don't, hop out and get a quarterback in the first round, getting a Justin Fields would definitely help. So I think Matthew Stafford's probably going to go to, he has one more team left in him, but I definitely think after this year, it's right off into the sunset type of time. And then speaking of Justin Fields, the Steeler quarterback situation is hella interesting only because I think they're probably going to end up making the wrong move. Yeah. They're most likely going to trade and get Aaron Rodgers, which I think is probably the wrong move. I know last week I said that's probably what they're going to do, but if I'm the Steelers, right? And I've already said, we don't see a future with Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, which again I think is silly because Justin Fields, hey, the man literally won 4 out of 6 games he played for you guys. He had one of his best times as a quarterback, only 1 interception to 10 total touchdowns. Like, I don't know what else he needed to do to literally show you that he was the quarterback for you guys, but I get it. You don't want to take that chance on a guy that's unproven. Understandable. But if they go get Aaron Rodgers, this would be a bad move because it wouldn't help their situation out. Like, they go get Aaron Rodgers, and only thing they would do is probably once again make the playoffs to have either another first round exit. Because again, Aaron Rodgers would be 42 with a bad Achilles. And now he's kind of developed this little I'm better than you attitude. And I think going into a Pittsburgh Steelers locker room with hotheads like with George Pickens, I don't know how that would work. Right? Like, I get it. You got locker room guys there who lets them know how, hey, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers way. But I don't legitimately know how that would work in that type of locker room. Especially when you have a guy who goes on to a TV show every week and talks about everything that goes on in the locker room. So things that normally would be kind of hush hush and kind of swept under the rug and only really kept in the locker room Aaron would go up there and talk about those things. And again, that is a recipe for disaster just to get a 10-7 season to go to the playoffs so y'all can tote Mike Tomlin has, never missed the playoffs again, only for him to lose in the first round again. So if they pick up Aaron Rodgers, that would be essentially the nail in Mike Tomlin's coffin. Because yeah, they would get to the playoffs, but if at this point he has to get to a Super Bowl to kind of prove his worth. I think be honest with you, even if he makes the playoffs this year, I think he retires this year. I think he legitimately is done. Like you can see he's not the same coach anymore, and I think he's just tired. But picking up Aaron Rodgers would just speed up that process. So yeah. Another offseason move I probably wouldn't be shocked to see is I'll be honest with you, a reunion of Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. Right? Like he thought the grass was greener on the other side. He thought he was gonna be making money and doing all of this and winning Super Bowls with Miami, and it didn't really work out that way, right? Tua was hurt constantly. He was at odds with his coach, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see a reunion of Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, right? Like that would honestly put the Chiefs over the top, right? Like to get two of the fastest dudes in the NFL on the same team. Good luck, right? Good luck trying to stop them. Like that would put the Chiefs right back in like title contention, like automatically. Like they're already there, but this will push them over the top because trying to stop both of those dudes at the same time, right? Especially if Xavier Worthy can take a step forward like next year and kind of step into that kind of like speed slot gadget type of guy. And that takes a lot of the pressure off of Tyreek Hill. He doesn't have to do a lot of that gadget stuff that he did before. Like he doesn't have to try to make extra moves or anything like that. He can just be the wide receiver number one. Oh yeah, good luck trying to stop that, because that will be a dangerous offensive duo, right? Especially with Patrick Mahomes coming back after this year, where everybody was questioning whether he was still, not great, but again, statistically, his numbers have been down since Tyreek Hill has left, and Tyreek Hill's numbers have kind of stayed the same. I wouldn't say got better, but they stayed the same since Patrick Mahomes and him split. But putting those two back together, a motivated Tyreek Hill and a motivated Patrick Mahomes, oh my gosh, that would be a duo to be feared, right? Especially if they fix the offensive line. No, it's over with teams if they did that. Over with. Speaking of over with, Sam Darnold is going to have a hell of a time this offseason on trying to trick a team into thinking he's still a quarterback that you can count on, right? Because I will say this, if Sam Darnold didn't make the playoffs and like he had the year that he had and where he put up like career numbers over across the board, right? He had career numbers in percentage, completion percentage. He had career numbers in yards and touchdowns and everything like that. If he had ended the season just to be like, didn't make the playoffs or anything like that, some team would have definitely busted out the checkbook for him and gave him a big money contract. Now, especially after those two games he had, right? The last game against the Lions and the game against the Rams, I don't know if teams are willing to be like, take that chance and give him a big money contract. Like he'll get somewhere near the 30 mil mark, but it won't be anywhere near like what it could have been. And there are teams out there that need a quarterback, right? We don't know what the Browns are going to do, especially if Myles Garrett is gone. Deshaun Watson, they don't really have a quarterback there, right? The Saints are thinking about moving on from Derek Carr, so they may need a quarterback just to kind of bridge the gap until they can find another one, because Spencer Rattler could have been the guy, but it didn't really work out for him, right? Tennessee, they could pick him up and get Travis Hunter, so that could be an interesting and tantalizing duo there. That he could go back to New York. He could go back and be with either the Jets or the Giants. They both need a quarterback. They have Malik Neighbors in the Giants, and they have, plethora of offensive weapons with the Jets. He could go back to the Jets, come full circle. So like there are spots for a Sam Darnold to go to. And I just like I said, I just don't know if it's gonna be the money for him that he could have gotten if he just stayed good until the end of the season. And then with the Jets, Devontae Adams is a weird piece because now with Aaron Rodgers leaving, it raises the question of does he stay or does he go? Right? Because if he stays, possibly he has, it's possibly just like the Raiders things where they don't really have a quarterback. He's still trying to win a Super Bowl. His window is closing. He doesn't want to just be known for being a great receiver. He wants to be known for a Super Bowl winning receiver. And for the numbers that he has put up, I feel like if he doesn't get to a Super Bowl, it would be a letdown for him. So I don't know if he stays with the Jets. And again, I think the Jets may end up cutting him just because they will end up saving a whole bunch of money. So that way they could kind of free up some money to kind of pay Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Brees Hall. Like they have a lot of people that are coming up off those rookie contracts that they got to pay. And they got to figure out what they're going to do and fast. Hopefully Woody Johnson isn't listening to his sons no more for Madden rating reviews or whatnot. But Devontae Adams is probably going to leave, and I can see him either going back to the Packers and being, Jordan Love's number one option. I think he probably would fit best there, going back to the Packers, kind of finishing off his career there. He could probably follow Aaron Rodgers, so wherever he goes, he could go there too, right? Again, I still think Aaron Rodgers should just complete the Brett Favre circle and go to Minnesota. Just finish the circle. Just leave out the defrauding of a state money. That's just leave that part out and you'll be good, right? But complete the circle and just go to Minnesota, and we could go back there with him. I definitely think he could probably go to the Panthers and be a good option for Bryce Young. If they don't go get a T. Higgins, they can go get Devontae Adams, and he can be that number one receiver there. That could work out very well. I definitely think it would be hard because again, the Saints are definitely in cap hell, right? Like he can go and partner back up with Derek Carr because again, he wanted to play with Derek Carr when he went to the Raiders in the first place. That was one of the big motivating factors for him to go to the Raiders, was to play with his college quarterback and be reunited with Derek Carr. So he has options there if they do end up cutting him. It's just a matter of like, does he want to finish his career off as a Super Bowl champion, or does he just wants to make sure he gets his bag and his numbers for like the Hall of Fame resume? So he has plethora of options. Someone who doesn't is Keenan Allen, who I don't know what he's going to do. I don't think the Bears are going to bring him back. I think that would be a big mistake. I think it would be a big mistake because the connection him and Caleb had near the end of the season was very much starting to catch on fire, right? Like he kind of became Caleb Williams' safety valve and number one option. So if I'm the Bears, I don't know if I want to take that away from Caleb Williams. If I want to make him more comfortable, I would keep him. Give him maybe a 1-year deal. Don't franchise tag him. Don't waste that on that. You should waste that on Tevin Jenkins. But I definitely think they should bring him back for one more year. He said that he doesn't want to play for any place else. It's either Chicago or back to the Chargers. So if I'm the Bears, I would really think about keeping Keenan Allen there just to help the development of my future quarterback there, right? So if he's the guy that you're going to go forward, get him anything he needs to kind of help keep his development track going, because you don't want to start setting him back this early in his career after all the setbacks he has had, and for him to have the success he did, you don't want to start pushing it back too much. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, that is my time. Shout out to Fluent Radio for putting me on. Just an update. I know I talked about this. He's fine. My son is fine. They gave him some medicine. His temperature came back down. He's not going to school, but he's fine. Just don't Google anytime your kids is sick, because for some reason, no matter what you Google, it always turns back into cancer for some reason. I don't know why. Fix that, Google. Shout out to Fluent Radio for putting me on. Shout out to y'all for listening. Until next time, guys, I got 2 fingers for you. Deuces. Because I Have a Live Mic was proudly presented to you by Fluent Radio, where all things are fluent. Please like, share, and subscribe. All right, 2 fingers. Deuces.